First of all, I want to thank everyone for attending today's virtual town hall hosted by the Golden Years Métis Society. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Dave Pelche. I am the president of the Golden Years Métis Society, and we're very happy to have 4 candidates that are running in this fall's MNBC election. We've changed the format than the one that we had a couple weeks back. We're just having this week or today the presidential candidates and the Metis Women BC chairperson candidates. So we'll have them on shortly. Before we begin, I'd first like to thank some volunteers that we have at Golden Years Métis Society who are assisting today and have assisted in the last one and in the last during the last couple of weeks in prepping and setting this up. Also like to thank the rest of my board at Golden Years Métis Society for supporting this and providing a lot of input and ideas. We really appreciate that. Also like to thank the candidates for taking the time out of their schedule. I know it's a busy time for them, and we really appreciate them showing the respect of coming out to this event and speaking to the different attendees and people watching. Obviously with COVID, it's a lot more difficult, if not impossible, to have these types of events in person. So we're just trying to make do with the technology and the opportunities we have. And we're really thankful that we have Ms. Fraser, Ms. Elliot, Mr. Dumont, and Mr. Mineault attending today. We really appreciate that. What the process or how we will expect today to go is I will start with a brief opening prayer. Preferably we would have liked to have our elder who pre-COVID would generally be giving these prayers and welcome words. Unfortunately, just with the technology and trying to make everything work, we're not able to have him on. But he's definitely in our thoughts that we wish he was here to do that. And so we'll start with the prayer, and then we'll briefly go, I'll present just some information regarding the election. There's been a couple of important changes in the last week, and then there's some background information that I think will be important to have in the back of your mind during the course of the election. And then we'll move into the question period. We're thankful to all the attendees. A number of you have sent in questions when you registered. We really appreciated that. We've tried to compile a number of those questions. Hopefully we'll get to all of them. Some of them we might not. We apologize if we're unable to. Some were of the same theme or idea, and so we've tried to combine or put those questions together to a way that makes sense. So hopefully we'll get to as many of those. There's also the Q&A option, which you'll see at the bottom toolbar. There's also a chat. Please use the Q&A option if you want to ask any questions. The candidates have the ability to see those questions, as does everyone else, and the candidates can actually respond to those questions in the Q&A. So I know that's an option for them to answer questions when they're not speaking. My understanding, the Q&A also allows you to, when you click on it, to ask a question. You can change it from your name to anonymous if you feel more comfortable asking a question anonymously, and we'll get to as many questions as we're able to. So that's one thing we'll want to do. So perhaps at this time we've got 20 attendees, which is great, and I'm hoping that more will trickle in as we're going through. We're planning to go until 8:30, so that'll be great. And for just everyone else's benefit, the reason we split this up is to have more people, or the candidates have more time to talk. So we'll give each candidate about 5 minutes to answer the questions. Not required to use all 5, obviously, and I'll give them a reminder about when there's about 1:30 left, just so that we can keep things going on track. So again, thank you and welcome to everyone. And this time I'll just start with a brief prayer. If I could just, everyone indulge me on that. Creator, thank you for the opportunity to engage in the democracy and the leadership and governance of our nation. We've come quite a long way, both technologically and with the issues that we face. I want to thank the candidates, the future leaders who are here, giving their time and an opportunity for our citizens to ask questions of them to better determine how we wish to vote. We also want to thank Creator to wish us wisdom to make sound decisions for our nation going forward. This is an important election, and we'd like to thank the Creator for these opportunities. So thank you, everyone. Before we go to the questions, and as we'll start with Ms. Fraser first once we get to the questions, one of the things I wanted to mention, there is a new election date. MNBC sent out a resolution. We had it from the board members, and it was approved by members of the Métis Nation Governing Assembly by email, so the various presidents from all the communities. And that was to push the election back to September the 21st. So that's important to keep in mind. Ballots need to be received, and that's important. It's received by the Chief Electoral Officer by September 21st at 8 p.m. That does not mean postmarked by September 21st. So please keep that in mind when you are sending your ballot, to afford yourself ample opportunity for your ballots to get through over to Victoria and the Chief Electoral Officer. Obviously, for those in more remote communities or in more remote regions or farther regions from Victoria, you want to make sure you do that. That's obviously the ballots this is a mail-in ballot or a mail-in election. There is no in-person voting, so ballots will be sent directly to each individual eligible voter. So that's important to know, so to keep your eye on your mailbox. From my reading of the timelines, that those ballots could start being mailed out as early as the end of this week, but possibly even beginning of next week. So keep your eye out for that. For those of you who may have recently moved, or even within the last, whether it's very recent or somewhat recent, I would suggest contacting Métis Nation British Columbia immediately. They have their contact information on the website, www.mnbc.ca, and you can call and contact them just to confirm that they have your current mailing address. And as the ballots are going to be going out shortly, that's something you may want to get on doing as well as soon as you can. If people have any other questions regarding timelines or other things like that, I would also encourage you to look at the MNBC website. They have a banner at the top, a special section just for the 2020 election. So you'll find lots of information there. They have frequently asked questions, and they also have the contact information for the Chief Electoral Officer. Because the election is being held by a neutral party, that the Chief Electoral Officer, the questions should be going directly to that person, as opposed to directors or other people at the MNBC, other than things like your whether or not your citizenship card is up to date and you have the correct address. So be aware of that. And then finally, just again, for people raising questions, use the Q&A section today and not the chat section. So with that all said, what we'll do is we'll start with the women's representatives, and in reverse alphabetical order, which is different than what we did last week. We'll start with Ms. Fraser. So if Ms. Fraser will come on. There we go. Thank you, Ms. Fraser, for attending. The first question, yeah, that's better. Thank you. The first question, and will be, sorry, I'm just trying to, I had it written here. Ms. Fraser, what are your top 3 priorities were you to be elected, and how would you plan on addressing those priorities?
Okay, so I want to really introduce myself, because I think there's probably people on here that don't know me, that weren't on the other chats. So I'm going to use up a little bit of my time to do that first. Yes. So my name is Lee Fraser. I was born and raised in Prince George. My Métis Ross family roots are from Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. and I currently live in Ladner, which is in the Lower Mainland. I've been married to my husband Cal for 36 years, and we have 3 great kids and 4 amazing grandchildren. I was the first person in my family to get a university degree, and I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology. I'm also a musician. I play and teach piano. I love the time that I spend with my Métis Nation, my Métis family. I started out volunteering on the NOVA board as secretary and community women's rep, and I've been volunteering as a regional women's rep representative, that's an elected position as well, for about 12 years. For the past 6 years, I've been organizing beading and moccasin making workshops in the coastal health region of the Lower Mainland. I love my beading circles and my beading friends. I'm lucky to have the support of my sisters and the rest of my family to do this work. My goal is to be elected as a provincial chair for the Metis Women of BC. So priority number 1, we just completed our strategic plan, which we worked on for several years, gathering information from grassroots women and putting it all together through various meetings and AGMs and get-togethers. And we're very proud that we'll be rolling it out this fall. And for the next 5 to 6 years, I am excited and committed to be able to work on the goals of that plan. We have significant funding in place, and we're going to be working on training our community women and our regional women, which we haven't had very much chance to do before. So that's a major priority. And being on the board as the chair of the women, I look forward to supporting transparency, making sure that at all board levels, the people know what the decisions are that are being made and how they're being made, and that there is consultation with people more than I've seen in the past. My other goal is, I had it written down here actually. Just working with everybody. My passion is our culture and arts, and I want to be able to hold that up and really start the MNBC on a way of caring for our artists and our knowledge keepers and helping them, and that sort of work is what where my heart is. Thank you.
Sorry, Lee, my apologies. My timer I thought was counting up. It was counting down. So you still have another 2 minutes. My apologies. So please continue.
That's awesome, because I found my other goal. One way that that the women can help with the issues in our nation is to be part of all policy making, all discussions and issues. And we need to be creating policy papers on every issue with a gender-based lens on it. And this has been a goal for some years now, and we've been making a start at it, and that's something that needs to go forward. Our communication is really key, and one thing to get everyone on the same page is to have policy papers so we're all working from the same blueprint, and we can really get working together and hopefully come to decisions as a board using consensus models. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Ms. Elliot, let's see. Dr. Elliot, perfect.
Hi there.
Hey, great. So the same question will be for you. What are your top 3 priorities, and how would you go about addressing that? And if you want to introduce yourself first, I think that'll be helpful as well.
Perfect. Tansy, my name is Kate Elliot. I recently graduated from the University of Saskatchewan with my medical degree. My family is Cree Scottish Métis from Selkirk, Manitoba. Family's names are Lyons and Gunn. I'm very humbled to be here and get to hear all the wonderful candidates to hear and share their words. And again, thank you, Gems, for putting this on. I've had a long-standing involvement with MNBC, as well as my home community of Métis Nation of Greater Victoria. I began working as the youth program coordinator and sat on the board of MNGV for many years. In 2012, I was elected into the position of Minister for Youth and Sport, where I continued to work on different policy agreements, engaging the youth on a provincial-wide level, and help build some of that infrastructure. I have been in school for way too long. Like Ms. Fraser, I'm the first person to graduate from university in my family. I obtained my bachelor's degree in nursing and was trained as an operating room nurse. While I was working with Métis Nation in British Columbia, I realized that being a young youth female, in order to feel heard, I kind of bought into this idea that I needed more letters behind my name. So I pursued my Master's of Public Health and Social Policy, specializing in Indigenous health at the University of Victoria. It wasn't the education that I necessarily learned throughout that policy, but it was through the wonderful opportunities I got with Métis Nation of British Columbia in being able to really enact and learn these skills regarding advocacy. How do we change policy? You know, how do we be effective communicators when we're dealing with people who hold the purse strings or who hold the power? And I think very similar to the youth perspective, Métis women, you know, there's power imbalance, not only from the aspect of being an Indigenous person, but as well as being a female. And it really shouldn't be like that, but it is. And I think what I hope to kind of bring to this role, and one of my goals, is really to use some of the formal education or some of the skills I've learned over the years to be able to really hold space and use my voice to communicate the needs of the women of Métis Nation, British Columbia. I think you asked what are my top 3 goals. I think, you know, coming into this leadership position, it's not about me, you know. Obviously I have my own ideas and thoughts, but it's really, you know, honing in on that traditional view of leadership, that it's about the community, it's about the community acceptance and improving oneself for the greater good of the community in the whole, rather than to get something on my resume or kind of that more Western approach. I think what I would like to do is help, you know, build off the strategic plan, but really showcase some of the women's voice and share our stories, because I think that's what's powerful. We can have the best written documents in the world, but nothing really speaks like hearing the stories of our people and demonstrating the culture and the wisdom that I know many of our communities hold. Again, probably I think I'm on my 3rd thing. I would like to do more arts and crafts. I want to tan a hide. Like Ms. Fraser, I am passionate about beading and moccasin making. While I was in Saskatchewan, I had the opportunity to spend time in Isle of Cross, which is a traditional Métis community. And I was able to do moccasin making up there. And I've continued to, throughout kind of the last 6 years, been able to host many opportunities. Currently, right now, I'm looking at organizing baby moccasin workshop with Sheway, which is a perinatal addiction clinic for women to help connect the staff and the women with culture. So that's something that I love and I'm passionate about. I will spare you guys the story about how I woke classmates up at 4:30 in the morning to drive to Pine House to try and tan a moose hide. But anyways, thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Elliot. So we'll next have Mr. Mineault come on. And once he's on, there he is. So, Mr. Mineault, the same question to you. What are your top three priorities, and how do you plan on addressing them? And if you want to introduce yourself a little bit beforehand, this would be a good time for that.
Okay. Again, my name is Walter Mineault. I'm born and raised in Dawson Creek. I've been married for 28 years. We have 4 children. I've got a couple grandchildren as well. We've run our own business for the last 25 years. It's been fairly successful. I've also been a founder of the Pouskoupi Métis Association back in the 90s, late 90s, as well as a regional director at that time. It was the MPCBC, which is an arm of the MNBC. And now I've been regional director for the last 4 years. My family is involved in Métis politics pretty well all my life. My dad was one of the very first vice presidents, along with Fred House. At that time, it was the Louis Riel Métis Association in the late 70s, early 80s. Then he had to step aside for employment reasons at that time. So we've been involved in Métis politics, our whole family, as long as I can remember. And my main goals and my visions for our nation are, the first thing I think we have to address is our COVID situation and how it's affecting our people across the province. I think we have to, as a government representing our nation and within this province, I think we have to, the first step is to try to lessen the impact of COVID that it's going to have on our nation and our people. That includes financial stability, that includes emotional, housing, a lot of different issues that are arising in our households now today because of this situation. There's a lot of people that are going to be feeling this effect as time goes on, especially financially. And as we all know, when financial situations occur in a household, it does cause a lot of other stress within their home. So we'd like to try to lessen the impact as best we can through our best of our ability as a nation to our own people. And that would include housing, housing initiatives. We would try to make sure that our people can afford to keep their houses, as well as maybe purchasing low-income housing. With our new housing dollars that we have set aside, I think our vision would be to establish a low-income housing for a lot of our families, our elders, our single mothers, single fathers, low-income families. But my vision is to allow them to purchase their own homes. The ones that aren't able to purchase their own homes because of their low income and because of the ability to access loans through banks. So I want to make that program available to all our people across the province and hopefully expand on it as time goes by. So I think that's going to help a lot of our people in their mental state as they're dealing with the financial situation of COVID. Another issue I'd really like to address is our equality in our own nation. We need to negotiate with our own nation, with our own government, within Canada, within the other provinces to give us equality. We need to be treated and respected as other nations are across this country. BC right now, I believe, is further behind all the other provinces, not just in our Section 35 rights, but to the funding process. We've given half the funding as other provinces are. I don't believe that is fair. I think we need to get back on a negotiation table with our other nations and make that a fair process. As we are equal to all our other nations, I believe we should be treated as well as our housing and our Section 35 rights. I think it's going to be very, very important. This is the biggest issue I have moving forward, is the inclusion of our communities. We need to include our communities in a lot of the decisions that we are making. We need to include them in the process and understand their concerns and address them as needed. We need to inform our communities of all of our programs that are available. Plus, they need to know the stipulations behind those programs and what we have to abide by. So then they know what we can put forward for the communities, and they can give us some ideas on how we can administer these programs where it will affect our communities the most positive way as possible. our culture, our heritage, our language. We need to address those situations within the community, bring them back to the communities, make sure that our people are seeing these cultural activities that are happening in its communities on social media, everywhere we can put it. We need to bring our people out to the open and let the government and let the people of BC know who we are and what we're all about, and that we do contribute to our nation and our country. So we are here and we are here to stay, and we need to be represented on them grounds. As well as the last thing, I think one of the things we need to address is our board and the inclusion of the whole board and the whole structure. We need to make sure that our board is solid behind each other and working on the same page. And
sorry, Mr. Mineault, I'll have to interrupt you there. Sorry. No, that's
no problem.
So thank you for that. Next have Mr. Dumont. There you go. And so there we go, Mr. Dumont. So the same question, your top 3 priorities and how you address them, and of course, in brief introduction of yourself for the attendees as well.
Thank you, David, and thank you for your community and your efforts to put this Zoom meeting on. It's you know, COVID is impacting all of us and the Métis peoples across British Columbia, all across Canada, and our governance here in British Columbia. I have a long history of knowing from the time I was born. I was Métis. Both parents were Métis. My dad was Cree and French. My mother was Cree and Scot. English was a second language to both of them. So we were raised as road allowance people. We weren't allowed to buy any property until the late 50s. And then we finally got a half acre in our hometown. And but I've done a number of jobs. I'm a Red Seal tradesman. I managed fallers on the West Coast for about 18 years. Worked for the Workers' Compensation Board as a safety officer for about 14 years plus. And then, of course, president of Métis Nation BC for 12 years. And married to Jo, my wife. We have a blended family of 7 children and 12 grandchildren. And currently, I manage the Indigenous program at Cedars Addiction Center, and where they have 73 residents or 75 residents, and about 20 of those are Indigenous people, Métis, First Nations, and Inuit from across Canada. So it's very rewarding working there and seeing how these people get healthy. But yeah, so I'm excited about this election, and I want to wish all the candidates well and success in their endeavors. Leadership has always been a focus for me and a priority. You know, strong leadership, and we want to work on a independent, self-governing nation, and so that we can negotiate with federal and provincial governments, nation to nation, and not through Métis National Council. And working with the Tri-Council of Métis Nation Alberta, Métis Nation Saskatchewan, and Métis Nation Ontario. I have a good rapport with all 3 of them from previous years. The other priority is full transparency and accountability. We have to manage our funding responsibly. So, you know, assisting all the chartered communities and, you know, directing money to them so they, you know, they're volunteers. They work hard, all those communities. And you as a president, David, you know, I know what it takes to run a community, because I was a member at one time, and I'm still a member of, I'm a member of Cowichan Valley, but I became a director, vice president, and president of North Island Métis. And so I have a long history. I joined Louis Riel in 1972 when my parents lived in Golden, and so it's been ongoing. Always interested in Métis politics, federally and provincially. And also another really important piece of this is a healthy work environment. we want people to enjoy their work, come to work, so that they want to come to work and be happy. And we'll have to revisit all the policies and thank you, and ensure the staff retention, and be inclusive of all women, youth, children, elders, veterans, and LGBTQS, I think it is. So, that's really important. The board has a voice. I'm the chairman of the board. The president should never have to vote unless he has to. And as long as the board's informed, you'll have a unified board so they can make informed decisions to bring our governance forward. So I want to thank everybody. Please, when you get your ballot, fill it out right away and remail it back in, return mail, and check my box there for Métis Nation BC president. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont. So we'll keep you up, Mr. Dumont. We're going to wrap around back to the next set of questions. The next question, and this will be for both the presidential candidates. So Mr. Dumont, if you want to stay on. Yeah, there we go. So the next question would be, and it ties into a bit of one of the priorities that you mentioned. What concrete steps do you plan on taking with the governments of Canada and British Columbia to recognize Métis Nation British Columbia as a self-governing nation?
Well, we as the board, and it's we, as a leader, you have influence. So I think it's easier with the federal government because of the Daniels case. We got full recognition from the federal government, but that doesn't transfer to the province for some reason. And the main reason for that is that, most of us are migrants to BC from the prairies. And we have 204 band and councils in British Columbia alone. So that's a challenge for us. But we have to work with the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs for British Columbia and with the federal government. I think it's a lot easier working with the federal government, but they have to also help us in transferring that recognition to the province of BC so the Métis Nation BC is fully recognized. We don't have any land here. We don't have any land claims. So that's also problematic. But there's no hierarchy with the Daniels case. We're all supposed to be on a level playing field with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. But I think the important thing is we've got to look into the future where we can buy a piece of land so we can have a home here in BC that we can call ours. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we'll have Mr. Mineault come on. So Mr. Mineault, same question. What concrete steps do you plan on taking with the governments of Canada and British Columbia to recognize us as a self-governing nation? And Mr. Dumont, if you want to put your microphone on mute and your monitor there. Yeah. So Mr. Mineault, when you're ready.
Yeah, well, one of the first steps I'd like to do is maybe start a hunting claim. We need a hunting and fishing claim in BC. We need a court case to establish our rights within BC, within our provincial government. I believe it's going to cost us some dollars right now, but the outcome is worth the time, energy it is to take to establish that case. And I think without that case, it's going to be harder to deal with our provincial government on our hunting and fishing rights, as well as our Section 35 rights, our entitlements. That would include health benefits, medical benefits, dental benefits. My vision is to hopefully establish something with the federal government to actually recognize what they've already stated they recognize, us as Aboriginal people of Canada with the same rights and recognition as our First Nations and Inuit brothers. And my vision is to one day, hopefully, within BC, establish our hunting and fishing rights, our Section 35 rights, the way I think I want to do that is I've been dealing already with the tripart government, the three other provinces, and they have also spoke with us and are willing to help our province move forward to with our Section 35 rights. Instead of reinventing the wheel, we would work with them and have them help us negotiate with our own government on behalf of BC. When we have all those leaders in place and coming to help one nation, it makes us a lot stronger as a nation and makes our whole province stronger. It makes our whole country stronger as we show the united front of all our people. And when we have commitment from those other leaders and those other nations, those other provinces, I believe that's going to give us a lot more movement in the future to be able to move these issues forward as quick as we can. We don't want our Section 35 rights to wait till 20, 30, 10 years down the road. We want them now. We want to work on them, and we want to push our provincial government to recognize us as distinct Aboriginal people of our nation. And for that, I think we do need to ask help from our other nations, which I have. I've already approached other leaders and asked if they would assist our nation and moving forward to where they're at now. And they've all committed to help BC. So I think we need to do that to show the united front within our own government to move this Section 35 rights forward, as well as within our communities. We need to establish our land base, which we should have within the province, which the government right now does not recognize. So we need to make these cases within our provincial government and show them the case law from other provinces and try to utilize that case law here in BC. I've already approached Saskatchewan on their case law. So, and that was a recommendation from legal counsel. So they are willing to help us out in the future to help us establish our Section 35 rights here in BC. So that's how I would like to deal with the provincial and federal governments on our behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Mineault. The next have Dr. Elliot come up, and she's up. That's great. So question I have for you, and this will be the same question for Ms. Fraser as well. As Metis Women BC Chair, how would you encourage participation in programs or events aimed or geared towards women and issues that affect women in Métis Nation BC? So essentially, it's I guess more of an outreach or encouragement. How would you approach that?
I think there has been a lot of kind of strategic planning, information gathered by the women of this province. I think in order to turn this document into a living, breathing thing will require a lot of networking and support. And I think it's not one person's task, but how do we inspire each other to come together and to create some of this work, as well as to acknowledge that each community will most likely have their own different directives and needs. I think it's important to encourage those relationships amongst the women, so you feel like you have that support. Sometimes working, especially regarding certain issues like murder and missing women, it can be very isolating and very hard and very heavy. So I think, help support the groundwork on the communities. I think a huge component needs to be how can we support our regional representatives in, really bringing this strategic plan to life. And I think just, really learning to support each other. That is all I have to say.
Thank you. And I'll have Ms. Fraser come on. There you go. So Ms. Fraser, the same question regarding essentially the outreach and encouragement.
Okay. Well, my experience has been that the women want to be involved and want to come to events. I mean, we're flooded with registrations. When I do my beading workshops, I have 12 spots. I'll have 300 women respond that they want to come to it, and hearing a lot of their stories. I mean, we just need to do more. We need to do more for these women. They want to be involved. They want to learn more about their culture. Yeah, so I don't think it's a huge problem encouraging participation. It's getting our women in leadership trained, which is you know, something that I do have plans for. The community women's reps are just there, just waiting to do stuff. They need a little bit of training, and we're going to be prepared to do that through the regional women, who will also need training, and facilitator training, that type of hands-on thing. That is what's going to get more events happening and thus have more participation. It's not a question of trying to scrounge up people to come to programming and learn things and take part in things and voice their concerns and share their stories. There's no shortage of women. There's a shortage of actual events. And that's why in the strategic plan, we do have events offered at every level. And we just need to do more. We need to do as much as we can with the dollars that we have to involve as many women as possible. Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Fraser, we'll keep you on. We'll wrap around and we'll get you to the next question.
Okay.
So the question I have is, how in your role as Provincial Women's Chair would you help keep the board accountable for its actions, the MNBC board in general, and in particular as it relates to women?
How to keep the board accountable, especially as it relates to women, is just to have my voice there on all the issues, to be well prepared. And I keep talking about these gender-based analysis policies. I would like to be the one that's presenting those as, you know, the strength of the women's viewpoint on all issues with the board. And, you know, it's a little bit different, and I just think that it's time. And it's happening at other levels of governance, and now it's our turn. And I want to be the one to be presenting that and keeping the women's issues in the forefront and the women's viewpoint as well.
Thank you. And we'll have Dr. Elliot.
So I think around accountability is really important. And I think, you know, making sure, again, being that voice at the table, representing women, making sure that we are representative with all the decisions being made. I'm reflecting on what could have been viewed as my soapbox many years ago, but just regarding some of the relationships with industry, looking at bringing in the Northern Gateway project. You know, I really fought to have not only the youth perspective, but the women's perspective there regarding, you know, the influx of people up into our northern rural communities and the impact that can have on women's safety. I have quite a bit of experience, you know, as, you know, the Minister for Youth, being able to hold my own at the high level at the board, regardless whether my opinion is popular. I think at the board, one of the things I'd like to focus on is accountability, is actionable items. So if we're going to say something that we're going to do, or we talk about it, you know, it's nice that people are aware of kind of what's on our agenda and what we're thinking about, but, you know, let's make timelines and let's make some action happen. I think is really important in slowly, you know, chipping away and addressing some of these larger goals and kind of the vision and the dream we have for Métis women in British Columbia.
Thank you, Dr. Elliot. We'll next have, I believe it is Mr. Dumont. There we go. So, Mr. Dumont, the question I have is, or the question coming from the participants, what are your opinions on the current discussions around Métis citizenship and race shifting? So people who claiming to be Métis when perhaps they're not. And do you believe any actions are required?
Yeah, that's, I know that is an issue with people that want to identify, I guess, as Métis, you know. I call it the Archie Bellany syndrome, which was Grey Owl and an English guy that lived in on a lake in Saskatchewan, claimed to be Apache Métis. But, you know, I think our registrar, Laurel Katernick, does a great job. She's one of the best across the country. And I think she determines, makes those decisions about, you know, if the ancestral connection is not there, well, you know, you're not going to get a card, and that's, you know, and I dare say that she's ever made a mistake in that regard. She's been with us since 2004. You know, she was an assistant and she became the registrar the same right after the new year in 2005, and she's done a tremendous job. All the governing bodies call on her for assistance, and so she's well versed in citizenship. If an issue came up, certainly we'd bring it to the board and see, you know, and deal with it. We had when Crema was operating in Cranbrook, there was a hunting case down there, and one of the guys claimed to be Métis. Well, he wasn't Métis. I won't say his name, but he got removed from the Cranbrook local. So, you know, we have to address it if it comes to the surface. We'll certainly address it, and because we are a distinct people of our own. You know, we know our ancestral connections. We know, you know, our parents and grandparents, and so, you know, you can't be somebody you're not.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont. We'll next have Mr. Mineault come on. So let's run. So, Mr. Dumont, if you want to turn your monitor and no problem, no problem. Mr. Mineault, so the same question, your opinions on current discussions around Métis citizenship and race shifting, and if you believe any actions are maybe required.
Yeah, I believe we as a nation should be the ones taking that action. One thing, I think we're neglecting our own people out there. I believe that we should have regional offices in place in every region where our people can start registering, and getting as many of our people registered will help to eliminate part of that problem, because the issue resides as a lot of people with a citizenship card are not getting recognized equally to people that self-identify. So what we have, sorry, vice versa. What we have to do is to make sure that we start registering our own citizens. We need to spend the time in the regions, in the communities, and the dollars to make sure that our citizens are registered and they are counted. The people that aren't registered at this time right now as self-identified, we have to make sure that industry, government, and everything gives preference to our registered Métis citizens out there when they are talking Aboriginal content towards jobs, towards opportunities that are given to Aboriginal people. So we have to make that aware. Our government, our industries, our public, you know, they have to be aware of who is Métis and who is not. And that is partly our problem, our issue, because we have not taken the steps to make sure that we aren't registering all our people, all our Métis citizens across BC. It is a big task to take on, and it's going to take a lot of dollars to do that. But I believe we have a mandate to make sure that we do register our people, and this issue does slowly go away because of that. because the more Métis citizens we do register and make sure that they have their rights, is the less people out there that are going to claim self-identification. So if we can take that self-identified procedure out of our registration, then what we are doing is we are registering and we are representing the true Métis in our nation within our province. And we want to make sure that industry, government, the public recognize who we are, not just self-identifying as a Métis citizen or as an Aboriginal person. So that, I believe, is our onus. Our own government, our Métis Nation of BC should have been taking steps to fix this and rectify it. And I believe that's the steps that we have to take to make sure that our citizens are recognized as Aboriginal people when it comes to opportunities out there that are designated for Aboriginal people in our nation. So that's how I would probably take steps to rectify that situation.
Thank you, Mr. Mineault, and I'll keep you on because we'll get the next question right to you. You can stay on. The next question I have is, what are your opinions on Métis Nation British Columbia's current or future involvement with the oil and gas industry or other resource extraction industries?
I believe the oil and gas industry is one of the big industries within BC, and it employs a lot of Aboriginal people, including Métis people in our province. So I think we need to get our communities more involved in the oil and gas industry and other industries that will help benefit them. But as well as we need to put our own environmentalists in there to make sure that our environment is protected on a lot of these projects. And we, like in our region, with the benefit of one of our local presidents here, she established a rapport with one of the oil and gas industries, which allowed us to supply environmentalists, Métis environmentalists on each of their projects. So where we had our own Métis people in there, making sure that environmental issues were all addressed and concerns were all looked after within that project. So they did include the Métis people within our region to help with environmental issues. And I'm hoping that their process will expand throughout the whole province, because I believe the Métis should have a voice when we're talking about our environment and the impact that industry has on it, as well as the employment that it does occur. So there is a two-sided door there where, you know, we have to make sure our environment is protected to the best of our ability for our children, our grandchildren, and our future, as well as to make sure that our people are employed with industries as well as our communities. And there is one program that we're working on with one of the major companies, Métis-owned company, where they are bidding on contracts up in the Region 5 area, but with support of the local communities. And in turn, that big company, when they obtain a contract, they will then use part of that contract, the benefits from that contract will go to the communities and will help their communities thrive, to pay the rent, to do community activities, culture events, help support some community members that need financial support, or any way they see fit to use them dollars to make their communities expand. And I like to do that with other industries throughout the region where the money's not actually coming to the MNBC. The money is going to these communities, and they are administrating these dollars that industry is going to be putting forward. I believe that Métis Nation of BC, is their role is to make sure that we have our funding available for projects that are funded by federal, provincial governments. Our rights are established and recognized within our province. But when it comes to industry and other technologies and everything, I think we need to include our communities in a lot of that, where they can benefit directly, not coming to MNBC as a donation and have us administrating part of it, and the community's getting a lot less of it. So I think all these have to be in place within each region so we can help each community evolve and expand, as well as we have to make sure that our people are out there dealing with their environmental issues and working with the industry to make sure that our environment is protected to the best of the ability, and along with our First Nations brothers and sisters. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mineault. Yeah, we'll get you to put yourself on mute there. And so the next question, I believe we're at Dr. Elliot. No, sorry, my apologies. Mr. Dumont, we didn't get that question to Mr. Dumont. My apologies. Yeah, sorry.
No problems. So, as you know, I did sign the agreement with Trans Mountain. We had a lot of consultation with all the communities from Valemont right to Burnaby. The resource development, responsible resource development is so important, and the environment is so important to all of us. And I look back at, I have 19 tradespeople in my immediate family, and a lot of them worked in the oil and gas. I worked in the oil and gas prior to leaving Alberta, and I left Alberta in 1972. So I worked on the oil rigs and I worked on the pipelines. But it may be that it's specific to certain regions, you know, if it doesn't impact us. But I think we have to look at proposals that are brought forward to the communities to make that final decision, and not completely up to the board, you know, because there are environmental impacts, and they're long-term impacts. You look at Alberta right now and what they're going through and trying to take care of these old wells that are non-existent and not working anymore. So, you know, that impacts the whole province. So, you know, oil and gas at one time was a major resource. Right now, they're really fighting for survival. We have to look at maybe green energy, look at other opportunities instead of oil and gas. But I think if we get a proposal from oil and gas, it has to be full consultation with the communities and the board to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont. And so, yeah, we'll next have Dr. Elliot. So the next question I have is, what do you see as being the largest negative contributors of Métis health across the province? And what step, and we can look at it generally or with regards to the women in particular, and what kind of, might you address some of those issues?
I think kind of one of our biggest barriers to health is being seen as invisible and not having a clear voice. My favorite is when I hear government and it's Aboriginal and Métis. I think that's the first thing to change. I think you know, there's been a lot in the media regarding the systemic racism of Indigenous peoples within our healthcare system. I don't think I have a day in the office where I don't have a person in tears about how poorly the system has treated them. I think what we need to do kind of moving forward is, you know, we're not going to fix the system overnight, but how can we focus on creating tangible changes that could have the biggest bang for our buck? I think making sure that, you know, we are involved and included and welcomed under the quote unquote pan-Aboriginal umbrella is really important. But I think we also need to advocate for Métis specific resources and health resources. Recently, they just established a Métis specific crisis line, which I think is fabulous. I know from the time I've had to spend on the prairies, you know, I really appreciated how much it meant to me and kind of my health of whenever it was a traditional welcome, it was, you know, Treaty 6 and the homeland of the Métis. I never had to explain to anyone who I am or what my identity means. And unfortunately, that's not the reality out in BC. And I think we have a lot of work to do on that front. So we can actually talk about some of the health issues instead of just repeating, you know, have you heard of Louis Riel? Like, you know, check your passport, our Métis flag's on there kind of thing. Yeah, I hope that's a very, very loaded question. I could talk about that for hours, but I will stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Elliot. So we'll have Ms. Fraser next. She's on. There you go. Yes. So Ms. Fraser, same question. The largest negative contributors of Métis health in the province.
Okay, I think that for women, but for all Métis, is the discrimination aspect, and also the isolation. A lot of the women in the north and in parts of Region 4, some on the coast, they're very isolated. They don't have the same access to various health diagnostic techniques and things that those of us living in cities are fortunate to have. Education is a big piece, and it is something that we can add to all our events. Have a component, like a stronger component about health. At the last few women's gatherings that we've had, we do get our health team there doing blood pressure checks and blood sugar checks, that kind of thing. And we need more of that. We need to continue with that. Also, at one of our women's annual meetings, we also had the mammogram truck there, and everyone could sign up and go and have a mammogram like immediately. And we were quite surprised, at least I was surprised, that a lot of the women there don't have access to just go get a mammogram, for example. And it is something that we can, you know, in a concrete way offer some of these things. As far as the discrimination, that is a long road. It's one that I noticed Métis Nation is already starting to try to get some answers from the provincial government, from the racism in healthcare. And it makes a lot of people just stay away from doctors more. I remember my Métis grandfather in Prince George, he would say, if you do go to a doctor, tell them everything, because if you leave anything out, they don't know it and they'll treat the wrong thing. You know, just a lot of people shy away from the, you know, the medical system, and education is key, and sponsoring events and paying for them whenever we can and offering hands-on diagnostics would be great.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. We'll keep you on. We'll get you to the next question.
Okay.
So the next question is one that someone submitted and registered. How will you work to support more authentic and meaningful transmission of women's teachings, in particular around coming of age, birthing, and parenting? And how will you go beyond like the 1 hour workshop being offered? So I guess carrying on and a bit more than just the one-time kind of event thing.
Right. I know that we have done a lot of that, where we just give people a taste of a subject, and yeah, once we know what people are interested in, we can try to offer like a weekend for a select group of people to work with some knowledge keepers and elders. And certainly we have not focused a lot of time on those exact women's practices. And it would be really nice to make a point of doing that in the future, region by region, depending on people's needs. But the 1 hour workshop is good for at least giving people a taste of it, and they can start doing their own research. And then we need to track some of these women with particular interests and talents and gifts, and try to offer them something more. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And so we'll have that same question for Dr. Elliot when she comes on. And do you need me to repeat the question, or?
Oh, no, I got it. I think, you know, the traditional knowledge and culture is such an important piece. And you know, it's always about a fine balance of how do we make it accessible to everyone and not a select group of people, but also being mindful of the teachings and ways in which the knowledge is transmitted. I'm thinking back to some youth events that we did, such as like Go Ask Auntie, just kind of bringing people together to not have a an hour lecture about it, but to really kind of foster that knowledge sharing and sharing our stories, I think would be important. And I think, you know, now is the time to be innovative. The world is changing because of COVID, that maybe, you know, creating like podcasts or different ways in which for people to engage. I know there's funding that has happened with MNBC looking at providing Indigenous women and Métis women with Indigenous doulas to be able to support them through their birthing experience. And I think having some things like this, but also kind of creating some knowledge around, you know, how can they interact with the healthcare system, or different things to say, hey, you know, one of the traditional teachings is the moss bag for baby, or bearing the placenta, so baby knows where home is, kind of thing. And, you know, it's not as easy, you know, it's hard, and I think we all get our teachings from a different way. So it's about a balance of, you know, how can we make this accessible to the women who are eager and want to learn and want to connect, but social distancing and travel and you know, having that availability of elders and knowledge keepers to them. I think you know, we have some work and some opportunities to be creative with that.
Thank you. Excuse me. The next question we'll have for Mr. Dumont. Thank you. Mr. Dumont, there was a lot of talk about this past year about the toxic work environment many MNBC staff were facing. How would you address this issue going forward? Were you elected president this fall?
Well, when I was president, I mean, I left the nation in pretty good shape, and the working relationship that you have with your staff, not that you manage the staff, because you have a CEO that manages staff. So that toxic environment is all brought on by leadership. You know, if you've never managed people, I've managed individuals over a period of about 35 years. And, you know, you have to be a people person. You have to address certain issues. You know, the CEO reports to the president, and then to the board. The president reports to the board. So if they're not doing the job properly, the president should never be involved in the day-to-day operations. You know, when you go into your office, and it was standard for me, I'd go to every department and say my good mornings and, you know, greet people as they come and go. And, you know, you just, you create it. If you're not a people person and you don't know how to manage people, you're going to create some distension there and then cause a toxic work environment. You got to, you know, trust the people, staff that we have, and they're dedicated staff, long-term staff that to do their jobs. You don't have to be there looking over their shoulder. You know, they know what they're doing, you know, and dress the ones that aren't doing their job. So, you know, it's leadership more than anything.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont. And we'll next have Mr. Mineault. So, Mr. Mineault, do you need me to repeat the question, or?
No. When it comes to staff and the issues that they've been dealing with for the last few years, I understand their concerns. My biggest thing I would like to do is making sure that we have our policies and procedures in place to make sure that our staff aren't interfered with at that manner. We need to make sure that our staff are protected. They don't have to worry about every election that comes forward, whether their jobs are on the line when they have a new leader or new leaders come into place that are representing our nation. We need to make sure that our staff are secure in their positions. And when they are secure in their positions and they feel like they're wanted, and they seem to do a lot better job for our nation, they work harder, they want to be at work, they want to be there, they want to succeed. And when they succeed at their job, what it does is it allows us to succeed. It makes their board work a lot better and more efficient to bring them tools to be able to succeed for our nation. You know, when we interfere with our staff and their procedures and how they're doing their job, it's not our mandate to do that. We are as a board are here to govern on behalf of our people. And our staff should not ever have to worry about the new government coming in every election. They need security. They need to be making sure that they are respected, as well as the board should be respected in both manners. And if you have that respect and you show that to each of your staff and your board members, you have a way better rapport. I've run up to 110 people that work for me at one time. We have usually anywhere from 20 to 40 employees at all times, except for since COVID, we had to lay off some people. But I've been working with people for a long time, and I've never been into issues where we've had to have arguments or disagreements, especially in public settings. You know, we got to make sure that we respect their positions as well as they respect ours, and be able to work with them on a day-to-day basis. And that's where our CEO and our leadership in the office comes in play. You know, if we allow them and give them the right tools to succeed, they will succeed for us. And then it makes our nation move a lot smoother. So my biggest issue with that is to make sure that we put our policies and procedures in place that are going to protect our staff from not just this board or any other board, but future boards, future leaders that come in. We need to make sure that they want to be there. They belong, and they mean a lot to our nation. And they do, because a lot of our staff are our citizens. So, you know, when we are treating our staff disrespectful ways, we are doing that to our nation and to our people. So I believe we have to put procedures in place to protect our staff from any leadership that comes in the future and right now in the present. So that's how I believe that we have to look after our staff.
Thank you, Ms. Mineault. We'll leave you, keep on, and we'll get you the next question here. I appreciate that. The next question, and taking it essentially from the Q&A, it's one that was kind of raised as well prior, but the way it's worded here. What are we doing, or what incentives can we as a nation offer to help communities secure the assets to make the charters self-sustaining? So essentially capacity, and what can we do so that our charter communities can be self-sustaining?
Yeah, well, that's one process I'm working on with right now in Region 5 is we are working with the industry right now to hopefully, you know, if they are successful within that region and creating contracts for their companies, they are now going to be donating part of the procedures of their profits towards that region and those communities to help them survive and thrive. As well as we see programs coming down that are actually our Capital Corp will be able to help out with some of the communities where we're going to be, I believe we're going to be looking at doing some grants for some of the communities that establish their own little businesses. I know some of them have secondhand stores or, you know, arts and crafts and stuff like that. These grants are going to be available for community-based businesses, which will our communities will then qualify for some of them grants. And these grants are available for a lot of other community-based businesses, Métis owned. So we're going to try to push them towards our communities and help the communities to be able to apply for some of these grants, as well as work with industry, work with government, try to make sure that all the money, that the funding that's coming down for culture, heritage, and everything that gets to our communities. That doesn't need to, we don't need to use a lot of that money through the head office and our administration. I believe we have to start pushing some of that money towards the communities to make sure that they can put together community events they can put together their own events where they can create income on their own behalf with our assistance. And that would be, you know, in place of these events that they're doing now. We would fund the culture events. We'd fund the language events and everything, which would bring more people into their community, which would include more volunteers, more reaction to a lot of community members. If they see what we're doing out there and we make it visible and we make the government see who we are, they're going to be looking at us more to maybe help fund our communities and bring them up because of all the activities they see us doing and the great job that our communities have been doing for all these years have not been recognized, not just by our own government, but our own provincial government as well as our federal government. And that's why I say we need to showcase our communities out there, show them what we're all about. Let the government see who we are. So then they know that we are a viable part of our communities and our economy, so that then they can start investing in us and our people to make sure that our communities can thrive in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mineault. And so we'll have Mr. Dumont questions. So, Mr. Dumont, the same question. And do you need me to repeat that, or?
Well, I've got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a number of ways. I think the one way is to have a nonprofit registered society with the communities so that they can go to specific industries and in their region and maybe partner with them, you know, under the umbrella of Métis Nation BC, but the money going to the community, not flowing through Métis Nation BC, just full recognition that they are a Métis community. You can look at the gaming profits. You can, you know, from casinos. My sister in Calgary belongs to Region 3, and twice a year they go into the casino and they volunteer at the casino, and each time they bring in about $40,000 each time. That's huge, eh? You know, so there's lots of ideas, and it's got to be community specific. You know, whether you're volunteering in an industry somewhere or helping with an industry, you know, I think there's many ways. We just have to explore those ideas and help our communities so that they can have funding to operate and do the things they want to do, and not just rely on federal or provincial funding. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question will be for, I believe we're at Dr. Elliot. Thank you. And this is another question that came in when people registered. How will you go about helping to create or foster unity among the Métis people of this province when we have such diverse communities and diverse needs within those communities?
I think that's one of the fundamental kind of reasons why we have a chairperson as well as the regional representatives. I think, you know, we all bring our own specific story, but geographically speaks, geography plays a part to it. I think it's important to, you know, acknowledge that the story of one is not necessarily the story of others. And again, I think it's really creating those relationships and creating opportunity for ceremony to make sure that everyone feels included and has their chance to be spoken or to speak and feel heard. You know, I think that is all on a fundamental or theoretical level is really important to, you know, have that positive form of leadership. I think to make things happen on the ground level creates a lot of hard work and dedication. I bring my work experience with the youth and being able to help kind of rebuild when I came in, being able to get the youth representatives, again, let's try and aim big and try and have a women's representative in each of our chartered communities. as well as I think having diversity amongst, what does the Métis women's story look like? A lot of us come from different walks of life and have different identities. And I think it's important to capture that and to show, the uniqueness and how adaptable we are to our environment. And so I think it'll take a lot of hard work. And it'll take time. And I think we have to build a lot of trust with our women on the ground to really get things up and going.
Thank you, Dr. Elliot. And we'll have Ms. Fraser on next. Wow, I love it. We're just like clockwork. We're so smoothly tonight. It's been great. So Ms. Fraser, I don't know if you want me to repeat the question or if you're ready to go.
Okay. So creating and fostering unity sounds just like a job that everyone's leaving to the women. And we're ready for it. And it is because of the communities and the regional reps, the community reps, that we do have our hands out there into the grassroots community women, and just presenting them with spaces where they can share their stories, and by being inclusive and celebrating the resilience of all our people, we can offer those safe spaces, and we can learn more about ourselves together. And part of being a strong community, that's what builds self-respect and that sense of belonging that we all yearn for. And I think that we've made a start at doing this, and it's certainly something that we're going to continue to do, is just listening to people from different regions and finding that commonality that we all share in our culture and our history.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. And we'll keep you up there. We'll get you onto the next question. But just before we ask the next question, I'm just noting we have about half an hour left. Surprised, we've gone through 6 questions for everyone, so that's good. We've been able to do that. So we'll ask probably a couple more, and then we'll close up with just an opportunity for each candidate to kind of say their piece, and we'll have a final question that'll allow for that. So just as an idea that what we've got going forward. So, oh, sorry. My apologies. You answered that. You answered that question. The next question will be, sorry, what are top priorities with regards to education and when we're talking about schools, so public schools and post-secondary?
Top priorities for Métis students in schools, you mean?
Yes.
Having the Métis story and perspective and identity celebrated and held up is so important. And I've my 3 kids who went through the system here in southern BC, and they learned a lot about all the First Nations, and there was very little taught about the Métis. But now with my grandchildren going through, I finally am starting to see the story being told. He's 9 and he is learning his Métis history at school, which is crazy. But it's something to celebrate, and so small steps are taking effect. That new curriculum that teaches, Indigenous history, but also separately teaches the Métis as well. I think that's really great. And I know some elders who spend time in schools, and I think that's something that we need to encourage and have more of, and possibly some kind of training. So that we're giving a consistent story in different places where maybe people aren't quite as experienced, but the kids need to have them there in the school with them.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. And we'll have yes, so same question.
I think education is a really important piece, and I think it transcends elementary school all throughout post-secondary, even to some of the cultural safety courses that are offered to healthcare providers and government. to, you know, make sure that that Métis voice is heard. Again, I think to showcase, you know, our culture and the strengths is really, really important. My cousin is Indigenous to Guatemala, and she got to read Maria Campbell's Half-Breed as part of one of her school assignments. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And she was so like riled up about it. So I think, you know, like the change is happening. But I think it's important to focus as well on that safety and that fostering the sense of belonging and self-esteem. I know from my own experience in high school, Métis wasn't an option, and I've actually realized that my high school got paid an extra $5,000 a year to teach me because I'm Indigenous. And you know, me being the firecracker I am, I marched in and I was like, I'm unticking that box. You're not getting more money. Because I didn't see myself in the supports and the things that they were offering, as well as they put me into all the remedial classes based on that question. So I think, you know, when it comes to women and youth and advocating for our rights, I think we have a lot to do within the education piece.
Thank you. Sorry, just to say it. So the next question will be for, I believe I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up, but if we could get Mr. Dumont on next. Thank you. Mr. Dumont, the question I have is, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up here. Sorry, just give me a quick moment. How do you view MNBC's relationship with our veterans, and what additional supports, if any, should be provided?
I think there's been a lack of support with the veterans. The relationship has not been that well, from what I hear. You know, we as Métis people and our Métis veterans sacrificed lots to help us live the life we're living today. So, you know, I'm not sure what they do for programs or proposals for the veterans. We have to explore that. If it's not happening, hopefully in the last round of the veterans from the Korean War, and you know, they got their compensation. Some of them, I don't know if all of them got their compensation, but we can always improve. We can always do better for our veterans for what they've done for our country and what they've sacrificed. So, you know, I think Lisa Smith does a great job with veterans. I think she always has. I think, but you know, we just explore more ideas and help our veterans, because some of them are aging out, and so we have to look after them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont. And we get next up Mr. Mineault, who's just coming on. So Mr. Mineault, the same question.
Can you repeat that one?
Yes, certainly. How do you view MNBC's relationship with our veterans, and what additional supports, if any, should be provided?
I believe MNBC should be ultimately respecting our veterans with the highest regard. My first issue with our veterans is going to be when we have our AGMs or MNGAs and our veterans are there on our behalf. I want to make sure that they're showcased, they're put right up, set up on a pedestal where they deserve to be. We don't need to put them in a corner hiding. I think we need to put them out front and let our people know who they are and showcase these veterans and to the respect that they deserve. I know they had an issue when they went to Juno Beach, where one of our veterans, we had some funding coming down, but there wasn't enough for all our veterans. I was approached by Lisa Smith and asked if there was anything that we can do. So I did approach a couple of our businesses here, and I managed to get $6,000 within 2 days to make sure one of our veterans can make that trip, so that we didn't leave anybody out. So with our veterans, I would definitely make it personal that I would go out and try to lobby on their behalf to make sure that we had the funding available for them to take part in a lot of our governance structures, a lot of our events. We need them there. We need to showcase our veterans and show the respect that they deserve through our nation. Our nation is here because of these people, because of the fights that they fought for us and the battles that they went through and the families that were lost over the years. So I believe that we have to showcase our veterans to our nation and make sure that they are funded properly for other events that they need to go to represent themselves and as well as us. So I would lobby on behalf of our veterans with business, with enterprise, with government, to make sure that they were funded properly and respected in that manner, to make sure that they're available to all our events so that we can bring them forward and we can showcase these veterans for all the hard work and dedication they put for our nation and for our country. So I would definitely bring our veterans out to the forefront and work hard to make sure that they were involved in all aspects of our government and our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll keep you up there, Walter.
Oh.
Got one more question here. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm looking at the attendees. I imagine most of the people watching this are aware of this, but perhaps for some that may watch it in the future when it's recorded. The next question is about the MNC funding formula, and I'll just, for those of you who aren't aware, at least, and this is my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, essentially with regards to monies that come through the MNC, there's a formula that's set where whatever is coming from the government that goes through the MNC, the Métis National Council takes 10%, and then of the remainder is split up 25% going to each of the prairie provinces, Métis Nation Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, Métis Manitoba Federation, and then half of that, so 12.5 of that remainder, going to each of MNBC and MNO. So the question is, what will you do to address the MNC funding formula going forward?
Oh, definitely. That's a big issue in my heart right now, is that funding formula and the equality of our nation. The biggest issue I have is that funding formula and why we don't have the proper amount of votes, because we also have on the national level, each of the prairie provinces have 15 votes for when we have our national assemblies. And us and Ontario, we only have the 5 votes. So what we need to do is to fight for equality. We need to put in a resolution at the very first national conference to make sure that we can get equality within our nation. We need to lobby the other provinces to push this, to make sure that they are on board when it does come down to a vote on a national level for our nation. And there is the worst thing about this question right now is I have a strategy in place how I'm going to be dealing with this. But if I bring it out in this here town hall, it's going to hard for me to utilize this strategy on the national level. It's going to give them ammunition to defend against this strategy, which I do not want to put out publicly right now, unless if I do not win this election, I will push this forward to our new government, whatever is in place, to make sure that we can hopefully utilize the strategy that we think is necessary to make sure that we do get our equal shares, our equal rights, our equal votes on the national level, because it all starts at home. Everything starts with your own people. When our people are always talking about to federal and provincial governments about equality for Métis Nation and the Métis people across Canada, I think it's about time we start that at home. I think we need the equality to start within our own nation, with our own people. And that's sort of one of the steps I would like to take. And I really want to address this, but the strategy that I have in place is going to, if I bring this out now in public, it's going to hurt us in the long run to be able to utilize this strategy to negotiate with our other governing bodies across Canada. So at this time, I'm going to stick with that and let you know that my vision to make sure that we do get on equal grounds within our nation, as with our voting rights, with our funding formula, and I will be fighting hard. I mean, extremely hard to make sure this does happen. My vision is to make sure that BC is equal to all nations across Canada. All our Métis nations that we are combined with and joined up with, we want to be treated equal to them, as well as our First Nations brothers and our Inuit brothers. So that is my goal once I get in. Once I win this election, I'm hoping I get enough votes to win this election. So my vision is to make sure that we are treated equal, and I will not quit fighting that battle as long as I am the leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mineault. And so, Mr. Dumont, we'll have you come on next.
Thank you, David. Well, let me give you some history. MMF, under the leadership of Jody Pierce, the old ARTA formula, it was supposed to increase as our citizens increased. So they used the old ARTA formula that MNO and MNBC, MPC-BC at the time would split the 25%. So President Chartrand sticks with that idea, and I fought for it for 12 years as the president. But as long as they continue to use the antiquated bylaws that they have in place, because they don't have a constitution, they've tried to pass a constitution, they've worked on a constitution, and it's not happening. So with the antiquated bylaws, if MNA, MNS, and MMF, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, don't agree, one of them, they all three have a veto power in these bylaws. So MMF will never agree to equalization with for Métis Nation BC. We've gone round and around about that. We've had MNAs always supported it, MNS supported it, but we couldn't get past MMF. So, and right now, David Chartrand, President Chartrand, won't call an election because Clem's time is up, and plus he's left, because he can't manipulate MNS right now. So he knows that he can't get the president in that he wants, which will be a certain individual that he has with MMF. So we have to change the president at Métis National Council. And the other thing is to our independent self-government. That's the only way we're going to get equal dollars flowing from the federal government to Métis Nation BC. And it's an ongoing fight. Like I say, I fought for it for 12 years. I brought it up every time. And it's the old ARTA formula that they used originally when they brought in employment and training in 1990, I think it was 99 or 98 for Métis Nation BC. If that's $6.5 million, plus that should be increased, double that. That should be $12 or $15 million, which all the other provinces get, except Ontario. So it is, we got to get rid of those old antiquated bylaws.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dumont. So this will be, we'll have one further question to the women's rep, and then we'll have one final kind of question to wrap it up. So this will be, geez, I've lost count. I think we'll start with Dr. Elliot on this one. I'm just going to read this one. So Dr. Elliot, given the COVID pandemic has pushed many different gatherings and events quickly to Zoom meetings and other virtual formats, how do you see the need to protect our authentic knowledge for future generations? Question is, how will we prevent all that makes us distinct from becoming pan-indigenized?
Very, very intriguing question. I think I spoke to this a little bit around you know, how do we connect with some of our traditional teaching around childbearing, child rearing, death practices, and things like that. I think, you know, it's going to take a lot of innovation, but I think it also gives us an opportunity to be Métis specific and hold space for our own traditions, our own cultures, and really demonstrate the diversity amongst us, opposed to the involved in kind of that pan-Aboriginal approach. I think it's important though to always get guidance around from elders of what can be shared and what can't be. I think, you know, COVID has changed the world. And I think, you know, we're at an opportunity that, you know, it could make or break us. Like, you know, I think all of us who have had the opportunity to come to Métis gatherings, you know, it's always like warmed my heart and recharged my fire and like my batteries, and just have always really appreciated that time. But we need to be innovative and figure out how can we still do this and still support this side of our identity while making sure that we're keeping people safe. You know, there's been many documented cases around large gatherings and the outbreaks. I think, you know, as well as being mindful about who are we missing with having everything just be on Zoom and technology. I think, you know, so often we think having your cell phone in your hand and checking your email every 2 seconds is just the norm, when it's not for some of our communities, it's not for some of our women. And looking at different ways to engage. You know, I work heavily with street and trans population, and I text some of my patients, and it's about being innovative to how can we meet our communities and our women of where they're at and what's meaningful engagement to them, not what fits well with, you know, my schedule or my needs. Also, I'm not very good at technology, so you know, I think I can't be the only one out there alone. So
Thank you. And Ms. Fraser, would you like me to re-ask the question, or are you ready to?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Or to re-ask? Sure.
Yeah, you re-ask.
No worries. So given the COVID pandemic has pushed many events and gatherings to Zoom meetings and other virtual spaces, how will we protect our authentic knowledge for future generations? How will we prevent all that makes us as a distinct people from becoming pan-indigenized?
Thank you. Yeah, that is a really tough question, because with COVID, everything is out there on social media now. All our beading circles. We did a stress management, Métis specific stress management workshop series that's out there forever. And our authentic knowledge, I mean, it really is going to get watered down. And it is the elders who maybe aren't as connected on social media, and hopefully somehow it can be protected. And I don't know if there's any way to specifically protect our authentic knowledge without stopping putting it out there and just keeping it for our own people and our own gatherings at whatever time we can get together with them again in the future.
Thank you. And so Lee, we'll keep you on. This will be the last round of questions, and it'll be the same question for everyone. So once Ms. Fraser's back on. So essentially, everyone will have 5 minutes. We'll just kind of wrap this up. And it's tied into the answers that you've provided, in particular the beginning. But why are you running for this position, and why should people vote for you?
First of all, thank you for hosting. That was great. I've heard lots of great ideas from everybody, and it just makes me more strong in my belief that I can do the work that this position requires. I really look forward to the next 4 years of leadership. And I've got kind of a list of things that I stand for. We need to work as a team, and we need to listen and represent our grassroots people. We need to utilize the strengths and gifts offered by each board member. We need to put them where they can do the best work for us. We need to include the youth in all our events. They're our future. They need to be there with us. They have fantastic ideas, and they need our support, but we need their support as well. We need to support our Métis art and culture. I support transparency and inclusion at all levels of Métis governance, and I hold my hands up to the resilience of our people. There's such a need for healing and compassion and kindness in our nation. And I'm not a slate, I'm an independent candidate. I just did my soul searching, and I'm ready to work with anyone who is elected onto the board. And with my 12+ years experience as a regional representative and several years as the vice chair, I have developed relationships and experience. I know people throughout the province and in the National Métis Women organization across Canada. I'm really thankful for my experience on the Métis Women of BC, for having the opportunity to attend national events, as well as our own BC events, including Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. I had the opportunity to attend 2 of those conferences. One of them was to gain information from us Métis women, because the Métis women were left out in the beginning. And we were instrumental in helping the government get the Métis women included in the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls as a specific group, separate from the other Indigenous women, and yet joined together by such horrifying events. My leadership style is collaborative teamwork. I believe that every team member is equally important, and I look forward to rolling out the strategic plan for the Métis Women of BC. I really want to be a part of that. We worked on it for 3 years. We collected information and stories and ideas from all the grassroots women from all over BC, every corner of BC. And I'm very proud of the work that we did. And I really want to be the one to help organize those events that are coming up. My passion is our culture and working with Métis Women of BC. Please vote for me for the provincial chair of Métis Women of BC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fraser. And before you go, we'll just have you back on for a second.
Sure.
If people have questions or want to find out more, how can they get a hold of you or find out more?
I'm on Facebook, and you can get a hold of me on my MNBC. It's on the website. I'm still on there, and I'll be putting information on there to forward emails as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. And Dr. Elliot, so same question. Why are you running for this position, and why should people vote for you?
I think that what's motivated me to run in the election this year is just I want to be able to give back meaningfully to my community. And you know, over the last year, I've been trying to engage in different ways from a physician perspective around, you know, cultural safety and different ways we could create some traction. And you know, we're just not there yet. I think I bring a lot of experience and knowledge on many different levels, from the community grassroots based all the way up to the high level policy, that I feel like I could be giving back to my nation in a more effective way, or more meaningful way. I'm also just, you know, realize that as a Métis person, part of my teaching and my values is that I have had the privilege of being supported by such an amazing community and elders and previous leadership, that it's something that I don't even need to think about. This is part of something I need to do, and it's part of my Métis identity. When it comes to why people should vote for me, I'm awesome. I'm just kidding. Little comedic humor. I think I'm super funny. I think, you know, I respect all the candidates, and I think, you know, vote with your heart and which way feels right for you. I think we have a lot of hard work to do ahead of us, and I'm prepared to put the time and make it a priority. I know there's been questions regarding just flexibility around timing and scheduling, and I'm prepared to make this I'm prepared to make this my top priority. I think ensuring that we are at the meetings and we are at the table. I think one of the things I would like to fight for is not for us to be a second thought, but for Métis women to be invited to the table right off the get-go. And I think in the way in which we'll do that will be a lot of relationship building with our stakeholders and our government, and, you know, advocating not for one pot of money, but a multi-year funding agreement. Oh my goodness. So, you know, I have the skills to be able to, you know, work and push and advocate for that. And I was lucky to gain that when I was a youth representative meeting with them before. So I'm excited, I'm energized, I'm a bit of a firecracker. So I'm always known to stand up for what's right and bring quite a social justice lens, which I think the women portfolio needs, and is part of that fundamental kind of anti-oppressive, anti-racism framework. That got very academic, but thank you guys so much, and I appreciate you listening.
And Kate, just Dr. Elliot, just a quick question. If people want to find out more about your platform or your ideas or contact you, how could they reach you?
I am on the Facebook as well, and will happily share my email and my phone number with Region 2. And Gems, if you guys would want, if anyone wants to get a hold of me to be able to make that more widely available, I would love to have a virtual tea with people and hear a little bit more about what their thoughts are and what they'd like to see.
Great, thank you very much. And next we have Mr. Mineault. There you go. So Mr. Mineault, we'll have the same question. Why are you running for this position, and why should people vote for you?
I'm a good guy. No. I'm running for this position because I think I'm involved in, like I said, Métis politics for a lot of years. And I think it's time that we had a strong voice within our nation. I believe I'm going to be that voice. I believe I have the capabilities to negotiate on behalf of our province and our people in a strong, solid, firm way with other nations. And I think we need that. This year, last term, I think we were lacking the leadership to be able to negotiate on our behalf. We need a leader that's solid to lead our nation, not to follow other nations. I think it's time that we have somebody in place that's going to be working on behalf of BC and only BC right now, and which will include working with the rest of our nations. So we do need a strong voice, and we need a firm voice to help negotiate on our behalf with not just provincial and federal governments, but within our own nation itself. So I believe I would be that strong voice. I've been involved in it for so many years, and I've seen all the things that have been happening over the years. And instead of sitting back and watching things happen, I believe I need to be involved in this situation to make sure that, you know, we are heard and people recognize who we are. I think we need a strong board. I think we need great leadership on that board, where we're including the whole board to be able to be active within our nation and help negotiate on behalf of our whole province in different areas. We have board members that have different expertise. So as a leader, I would bring those expertise in play. I would allow board members to show what they can do for our nation and put them together in teams to help us negotiate on our behalf. Each board member will be part of this team. They will be able to put their input, and they will be informed of all aspects of all negotiations that we have moving forward. And that's where I would like to utilize, I think, our women's rep and our youth rep, because we don't need to just utilize it within their mandate to represent our women of our nation and our youth of our nation. I think we need to bring them in on different portfolios, different programs. They need to be involved in all aspects as well, especially our youth, to bring them forward, to help them learn the whole governance structure, not just youth initiatives. They need to know all the governance structures, so when they come forward as time goes, these are our future leaders. These are who we have to put our trust in the future. So we need to bring them along and push them forward and help them thrive and grow within our nation. And how we do that is we put them involved in other issues within our government. Not just youth initiatives, not just women initiatives. We need them involved in other aspects, employment and training, Section 35 rights, government negotiations on all aspects and all programs that we have. We need everybody on this team to be involved in it. And I think we are lacking that team initiative in the last government we had. It was been split up so much, and it's hurting our people. It's not just hurting our government, it's hurting our people, it's hurting our staff. So we need to push forward to make sure that our people are well looked after and well represented. And I believe I'm that person to be able to sit and negotiate with all these leaders on our behalf, on BC's behalf, to make sure that we are recognized and we are shown the respect as other nations are. We need to really fight for our Section 35 rights, and our self-government negotiations have to be very firm, and we need to show the people out there that we have a leader in place. My vision is to make sure that our leadership is respected at all levels of government and all nations, and to make sure that we are heard and looked at and taken into account when we're negotiating with everybody. So we need that leadership, we need that dedication, and we need that voice. And I believe I'm going to be that voice for our nation to be strong and to be firm and to represent our people to the best of their ability. And that's where our whole board comes in place. We have to utilize everybody and make sure that they are in full cooperation with all aspects of our nation to make sure that we move forward. So that is my vision for our nation right now, is to make sure that we are heard and we have a solid voice on a national, provincial, and federal levels, and we are represented in a proper manner. That's why I'm getting involved in this nation, and I'm hoping that you vote for Walter Mineault on September 21st for President of the Métis Nation of BC. Any information you need, my email is wtminault@hotmail.com, so you can contact me there on Facebook. My phone number is 250-219-8767. I will be available at any time, as long as it's not after midnight. But I will make myself available for the people out there when I win this election. So please vote for Walter Mineault for President of the Métis Nation of BC in September 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mineault. And I don't need to ask about contact. You've provided that. Thank you. So we'll next have Mr. Dumont. And Mr. Dumont, why are you running for this position, and why should people vote for you?
Thank you, David. Well, I've been there and done that. I know I can lead with my with my strong leadership and experience. We have to bring pride back to the Métis Nation BC. So, there's been a lot of unrest over the last 4 years. We have to remove that unrest from the office. We have to work in cooperation with the communities. And I've always been interested in Métis politics. I can help, and we certainly shouldn't be wasting any money on legal fees unless necessary, or consultants to on our day-to-day operations. We spent way too much money and removing people and costing us money. You know, I'm very committed. I'm very prompt. I'm on time. I'm ready, organized, and it's teamwork with the board and the communities. When you've been there, because it's 24/7, you have to work hard, you have to be on time, you have to be there at all times. You have to answer questions and emails. And I just think back in my last year, I was away from home 180 days and I went to 172 meetings. That's embedded in my brain here. And but it was rewarding in the end. I certainly have political capital, you know, with the federal and provincial governments. I'm well known across the country with all our governing members. So vote for what you know, and you can contact me on Facebook, or my email address is meitistrapper@shaw.ca. I've had that for probably 30 years. And my phone number is 250-208-0701. And I would really appreciate your support and be the leader for Métis Nation BC again. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to GEMS.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dumont. And I'd like to thank all the candidates. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule. It's been more than 2 hours, obviously, the prep. And so we really appreciate that. We had all of the candidates running for the Metis Women Provincial Chairperson position, and 2 of the 3 that are running for the president's position. So we do appreciate that. We did invite the other provincial candidate for president, but did not hear back. So this will be the conclusion of this. I also want to thank all the attendees. I think the highest point we saw was 25, so that was great. Really appreciate you coming out. The plan is we will be posting the recording on the Golden Years Métis Society's YouTube channel, and you can probably find the link for that on our Facebook page shortly. So I want to thank, obviously, the Golden Years Métis Society board for all their assistance, and our volunteers who are helping with all the behind the scenes. Much appreciated. And thank you everyone for coming. So I'll have a brief closing prayer, and then I'll wish everyone a good evening. Creator, I'd like to thank you for bringing the candidates to our attention and allowing all of our members and citizens to have the opportunity to hear the wonderful ideas, the passion, and the wise words that we've heard from the various candidates. It is an important decision ahead of us, and the words spoken today make that decision harder in one way, but also we're thankful that we are provided with a lot of the information to inform and make a decision that's going to be best for each individual voter and for the nation as a whole. We thank you for bringing us together virtually when we're unable to do this in person as we would prefer. But we thank you and pray that you keep us all safe and healthy, and that we can all move forward in a good way with this event and with the election coming up. Hi, Miigwech, thank you. And again, I'd like to thank everyone for their time this evening. Keep in mind, we have a second town hall coming up on Thursday. It'll be for the vice presidential candidates, as well as the Métis Youth Provincial Chairperson candidates. So we'll have that on Thursday. For the attendees, you don't need to register again. We will provide you with the link for our candidates if you wish to observe that. I think perhaps just send another one, just because I'm not sure if it was registered as candidates, and it might be slightly different as an attendee, because it'll be a different invitation, but we'd love to have you there as attendees so that we can hear from the other candidates for the other positions. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and stay safe.
Thank you, Golden Ears
Thank
Métis
you so much.
Society, for doing this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.